Another new releases video. This is the 12th, so at least I've managed one a month during this calendar year. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you've got something out of it as well. And I probably will get a baker's dozen in, another one, before the end of the year. And that'll be time to consider. I'm going to do a top 40 from this year. I'm really looking forward to selecting that. I've come alive really to new music this year after sort of being in the doldrums, really, reflecting on all those great pieces of music from yesteryear. But one's got to look forward. This is a message for those who tend to avoid these videos. Give them a listen. Now, in a previous video, I referred to briefly about the importance of promoting, or using a different name really, recommending black artists and black music. If the individual who had a rant about me referring to promotion, hello to you. And I trust that you've now got your head out of your ass. Okay, I'm going to review maybe 6 albums here, 4 reasonably thoroughly, 2 probably just nonchalantly, and a number of them actually promote or recommend black artists. So let's get going with this video on new releases. One then, Wide Through the Eyes of No One by a band called, I don't know if they're called a band, but the Steeples. Now, this duo, who are referred to as GB and Yofi Andau, are rappers, hip-hoppers, and so I don't really know anything about them, but I latched onto this album, where they're using the alias, the Steeples, 3.5 years after they released 6 Rocks, which I don't know about. But this album really caught my ear. It integrates and modernises R&B sounds across eras, and it encompasses a bit of late 60s psychedelic soul, a bit of progressive 70s, some folk jazz are in there, and a machine soul from the 80s are all into this mix. So I must admit, I've listened to it a few times, and it's definitely different, and it's provoking because you feel, I know it sounds a little bit like somebody else, but not that much. Okay, so I'm going to go through the tracks. Now, in contrast to previous videos in this series, I'm going to try and not cover all the tracks because the videos get too long, don't they? And that becomes a full review. Okay, so let's get on to a quick review of these tracks. Everybody's Song. It's got a great funky rhythm with an array of vocals that mix with that sort of R&B, jazz, folk, progressive feel. If you can understand that combination of genres, you're a better man than I. But as I said, a unique sound that washes over the central soul harmony. The good news is next. Synths skip over an odd mix of psychedelic soul. I love the vocal harmonies on there, and those horns way back in the mix. The harmonies are more of a nod really to an English-based band in the, I think it was the 90s, called the Christians. Track 3 now, In the Dance. It's got an Isaac Hayes type of feel that floats with a fusion of string-laced jazz soul. Love it. Up next is Cotton. It's a bit of a standout. It's got a hypnotic bossa nova-like beat. Very light though, with floating strings laced with that jazz soul feel. And then gentle vocals as well, which I like a lot about this album. Lonely Behaviour comes next. And there's some tasty guitar chords here are wrapped up in the cozy vocals. It's very moody, very atmospheric. So that covers half of the tracks. The others, if you're interested, you'll have to go and listen to on Spotify. I'm very impressed with this album, and it's certainly going to be in that top 40. Title again, Wide Through the Eyes of No One. The name of the band is The Steeples. Bring here, If Words Were Flowers by Curtis Harding. This was only released a few weeks back, and I've been playing it. It's the third album from this artist, this African-American soul singer, and his first album, Soul Power, I have, and I thought it was a blast. It came out in 2014. Face Your Fear from 2017 I haven't got. This young man was born in 1979, so he's no young man, is he? He's the other side of 40 now. His mother was a gospel singer, and he occasionally sang backup when she was touring various churches and communities. That was when he was a teenager, and it certainly rubbed off. He rapped on some songs off an album by CeeLo Green, his 2002 album, an artist that I'm also familiar with. He sang on his 2010 album, The Lady Killer, as well, co-writing a bonus track, Grand Canyon. Anyway, he's spent a lot of time in Atlanta, and in 2009 he formed the band Night Sun, which mixed rhythm, blues and garage rock with an artist, Cole Alexander, of a band Blacklifts, which means anything to me. But he released his debut, as I say, with original material. And I have to say that this album really hit me straight away. It is pure quality. His mix of funk and soul style with a bit of psychedelia makes it an instant favourite of mine. And now I'm going to go through some of the tracks. The track If Words Were Flowers opens it up. It's got a haunting horn montage to start us, coupled with that lilting percussive beat that prepares us for a palette of soulful harmonies. And when the harmonies come in, the music has certainly smacks of jazz soul. It's excellent, and it's purely instrumental. To track 2, Hopeful, and here we get some gospel harmonies that has a feminine feel to them, although I couldn't see any women credited on this album. But it launches Curtis's lead vocals, rap-style vocals, it says, and the strength of the horns owe a nod to Curtis Mayfield back in the 70s. But they're a little bit more genteel than what we heard from Curtis, namesake Mayfield. And a scintillating liquid extended guitar break meshes with the horns and harmonies, and it wraps you up in the title as the strings immerse the mood. Beautiful track. Next up, Can't Hide It. This is very 60s soul with psychedelic tones. It punches the air, and there's a unison feel to the vocals. Motown memories touch you here, and the chorus is certainly reflective of that. The sound is, though, modern, and it's clear that this artist takes risks. And out is track 4, With You, a lovely R&B ballad that filters in on top of an acoustic beat. Harding's vocals have a soothing feel to them. The arrangements complement this song's foundations, but they don't saturate it. And I hear a soft version of the English artist Seal in this song. Track 5's Explore, and the horns blow into the next riff with synthesizers, and you get a sort of Niles Barkley type mood. Curtis gets up high here, and he sounds soulful and tender with a slight funk edge, and there's a real electronic feel to this track. And then this is the second side now. Where's the Love? A catchy guitar riff intro leads to a hip-hop spoken word message before the horns merge with the harmony vocals. Psychedelic guitar hits you 2 minutes in, and it resonates with the blurting horns before segueing into the next track. I stop words blurting out. It usually does that at 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's just turned 10 here in Thailand. The last track I want to look at, which isn't the last track on the album, The One. Some nice synths there that finally replace the percussion, and there's a vocal montage with some nice guitar, a very airy harmony. 4 more tracks that I'm not going to cover here, but this is 5-star material. You've got to like soul and you've got to like R&B, and this guy is the future. He makes you realise that soul music didn't end at the end of the 60s. So I would thoroughly recommend this if you like soulful music, you like R&B, you like sort of, how can I put it, progressive soul, retro soul. Got confused with all these genre titles. All I know is it's really good, and so get to listen to it. The album's called If Words Were Flowers, and it's by Curtis Harding. And my third offering today is Mother Nature. This is by the Benin Diva, Angelica Kidjo. Angelica, of course, is a fantastic role model for women and for everyone around the world. Her UNICEF ambassadorship that she's been doing since 2002. And her music is right up there if you're considering wanting to dip into African influenced music. She speaks 4 languages, sings comfortably in English, in French, plus her 2 languages locally. Her last 2 releases have been, well, to say the least, radical. In 2018, she did a remake of the Talking Heads' Remain in Light, and there's a review of that album on my channel. And then a year later, she did an album called Celia, which was a tribute to the salsa goddess Celia Cruz, who spent a career really celebrating African sources in her Cuban music. And Celia Cruz is an artist that I really need to explore a little more. I've been a big fan of the Benin Diva right since the early 90s, and have been buying her albums as and when they've been released. I started with her 4th offering, Lagoso, in 1991, and really from there on, her music has captured my ear, and it's been of a very high quality. And of course, she's so comfortable doing collaborative work with Western artists. Dave Matthews comes to mind, Carlos Santana, and various others have been involved in her music. So what of Mother Nature? Well, it's her 18th release, and there's a lot of collaboration on this with an array of African musicians. I have to say, most of them I are unfamiliar with, but I guess that's going to be a job now next year to track down some of the music from these people who offered their services to make this a really good release. So let's get on to some of the album tracks now for Angelique Kidjo's Mother Nature. This album again last night, and it was an absolute joy. It opens with Choose Love, co-written by a Zimbabwean American songwriter, and here's the pronunciation, Shungudza Zukuyimba, and a Nigerian songwriter, Adenyi Sienamatik. Yeah, I'll maybe try and skip those African names from here on. It starts anyway with a rousing chant sung in sort of rounds. It features Lionel Lou Eke on guitar. He's from Benin, but it's the only instrumental accompaniment on this sound, and it's an absolutely tremendous opener. The voices are euphoric in the chorus, and it sets up the message that runs throughout this album. Track 2 is Dignity. African tribal rhythms guarantee foot and maybe hip movement here. It's sung in English, as nearly all the album is. It's very funky, and it's of course political. Angelica is very outspoken about the wrongs on this planet, and particularly a great voice for women's rights. And this one attacks Nigeria and is in support of Nigerian youth as they struggle against a corrupt branch of the police force that extort money. And then we move on to track 3, Africa One of a Kind. Didn't make any notes on that one. So track 4, Mother Nature. Smooth horns add to a swing feel to this gem. It's another political plea amongst this reggae Afrobeat rhythms, but I do love it. 5 is a very strong track as well, Do Yourself. It's got some more Nigerian input on vocals, and there will be a slide, hopefully referring to all the contributors on this. And this is a cinch for the dance floor, full of joy and soaring choruses, atop of layered instrumentation and particularly percussion. Meant for Me is next. The pace quickens here and it becomes more infectious with those danceable tones. To Omon Oba, this is sang in her local dialect, and it's typical African style rhythm that tend to focus on percussion-led instrumentation. And so to Free and Equal, well, self-explanatory. A Zambian singer, Sampa, is featured here, very famous in his own country, and typically with Angelica, they effortlessly fit together on a skittish sound, very much for the club scene. And then we get Fired Up, which is a more club style song with hip hop on display. It's very polished and full of rhythm, and I just love this Kid Joe rhythm and some neat jazz guitar thrown in as well. There's another 4 tracks, but as I say, I'm not going to do the whole 9 yards. Just to say, if you haven't heard any African music and you want to get a start, this would be a great advert. This woman is an absolute gem, and I love her to bits. It's called Mother Nature. It's by the Beninese artist Angelique Kidjo. The album's 3 black artists on display. The 4th continues with that. This is an album called Gold Digger's Sound by an African-American artist, Leon Bridges. Much again, funk and soul to the front. Very contemporary in places, but it's R&B that Bridges has brought to the party. He was born in 1989 and had his debut album in 2015, Coming Home, which was quite a big hit. I don't remember it, but I've downloaded it last night, so I will be listening to it later. And this album of the same title was nominated for the Best R&B Album at the Grammys in 2016. So he has some pedigree, this boy. And once again, I was overwhelmed really by the breadth and tastefulness of these tracks. And I'm going to go into some of them now in some detail. And it's got a very sauntering beat with a seductive vocal on the intro. And the vocals in front of very eloquent strings. There's a sax and trumpet that meshed together early on to mark the jazz influence on this record. And I noted that when I got some details, he put together all the members the musicians that played on each track, which helps a reviewer to get the type of instrument used correct. Track 2, Motorbike, captivating soul, takes you on his ride. The drum programming on here stands above the amalgam of keyboards, piano and synthesizers that combine and mixed exquisitely with his vocals. Really like this track. Track 3 is Steam. There's more punch to this one, very funky soul piece. Some sweet feminine harmonies, though I'm not too sure whether, I think they are girls in the credits, but I'm not too familiar with all these peculiar first names. But it had a Talking Heads type silky rhythm to it, and definitely a favourite of mine on this selection. And then we get on to track 4. Track 4 is called Why Don't You Touch Me, and this is an impassioned soul ballad with vocals from the R. Kelly school, I thought. I know he's a bit of passata non grata, but he was absolutely a tremendous R&B singer, and this has a feel to that. The guitar is very solemn on this track. Magnolias, a nice acoustic guitar duets with Leon's vocals as we slide into his tasty lead vocal, and the horns production is evident throughout to fill the song out beautifully. The R&B vocal overlaps with considerable taste, and as I say, we've got alto sax, trumpet and a trombone featuring on this track. Then to the title track, Gold Diggers Junior's Fanfare. It's a very moving, wake-like song, fanfare, that segues into the next track, Details, which is another track I really like. Although it starts off, and one could almost suspect that it was being sung by John Mayer as lead vocalist. There's a lovely sitar that highlights the jazz overtones, and the guitar meanders between the occasional horns and the vocals. Love it. It's a great track. It's called Details. And then we move on to Show Nuff. Continues the gentle breathing and delicately played is highlighted on here by one Steve Wyreman. Not too sure if that's the correct pronunciation. And there are a number of other tracks which I am not going to cover. I think 4 more. This is a real, a thoroughly lovely listen, really, and probably not quite up to the Curtis Harding, but pressing him very hard. These two young men are going to be centre stage, I believe, in the sort of soul appreciation over the next few years. So get to listen to it. It's Gold Digger Sound, and it's by Leon Bridges. Very brief referrals. This next one is called La Luz, and that's the name of the album and the band. They're based from out of Los Angeles, founded in 2012 by 4 young girls, women maybe is a better term. Shania Cleveland, Marianne Lepino, Alice Sandal and Abby Blackwell. There's certainly a Latino influence on here. They've released 4 albums, and this self-titled La Luz is their latest, described as surf noir style with layered vocal harmonies. Surf meets garage rock. Now, the 4 that I referred to are not all on this album. 2 of them are, Shana and Alice, but they've been joined by Lena Seymour on bass. I'm going to go briefly through the tracks. I've listened to this a couple of times and it's growing on me. It opens up with In the Country. It's got some really nice little rich sounding jangly guitars with synths, and the feminine vocals soothe over your psyche. The Pines is next. There's a mellotron that creates some sort of odd rhythmic loops, and the guitar is back in the mix. Third song, Watching Cartoons, a beautiful sitar combo with I thought it was dobro-like guitar, and it melts in with the harpsichord, and the vocals are very European style. It's a very, almost like a rhythmic stately waltz, very appealing indeed. Oh Blue, this has some doo-wop style vocals, definitely a nod to Phil Spector here, and great guitar echo. It's very 50s style, and the harmonies are dreamy and sensual. And then we have Goodbye Ghost. Here we get into skippy psychedelic rock. There's a bit of chaotic guitar soloed, and it whizzes a bit towards the outro. So there are a handful of tracks. This one could definitely be a grower. If you like female harmonies and female lead vocals with a jangly sort of indie style, get to it. You'll love this. And it's La Luz. Last offering on this video, it's called The Apple Drop, and it's by a band called Liars. They're an Australian-American experimental rock band that were formed in New York in 2000, fronted by one Angus Andrew, who's the founding and only constant member of this band. He's now got a multi-instrumentalist, Cameron Dale, and a drummer, Lawrence Pike. And it's described as alternate experimental rock. And this is their 10th album. Suffice to say that I haven't heard any of the previous 9. And I'm just going to quickly go through some of the tracks. The Star, it is the opening cut. It's drenched in experimental rock themes with prickly electronics. Slow and Turn Inward has a meditative, slow, hypnotic rhythm. And Segue, spoken word delivery, flirts with a bit of rap. There's a massive synth bass that cements the rhythm, and you get a feeling of dread and regret while listening to it. It's probably due to the psychotic wailing vocals. High Appetite is next, 80s gothic rock in patches with drowning vocals, very progressive drums, a highlight, it has to be said, maintaining an effective heavy beat. And then From What the Never Was, it has a spacey feel to it, and I like the dreamy harmonies with the strings that are added into the mix to create a cool overall sound. And then we've got the last I want to touch on, Star Church. Had a Lou Reed type vocal intro to me, but it plods a bit, and it's progressive rock bombardment with a bit of post-punk angst. Not really my cup of tea. So in conclusion, I'll struggle with this one. There were a few moments that caught my ear, but the overall package is not my cup of tea. It's just a little bit too noisy for me. I'd have loved it back in 1972 probably. So there we are, 6 albums there reviewed. There will be links to the music in the description, and I welcome your comments please on these albums and any other albums, new ones that you've heard that you think might benefit from my ears and possibly a review on this channel. That's my lot.